Invercargill it's actually very renowned for sport. They've got great facilities there, good rugby town, and there's not a lot going on there either. So if there's ever an opportunity to give somebody the chance to learn professional wrestling, Invercargill could be it. So I pitched it to Troy and said, hey, have you thought about maybe opening up a school yourself there? Like if there's nothing for you here, let's create something.
Hello everyone and welcome. It is episode 15 of That Sweet Pop. My name is Dion McCracken. He is Brad Lewis. Later on in the show today, we speak with the Hooligan Marcus Kool, part one of a two-part interview. And we've got an exclusive announcement from our friends at Southern Pro Wrestling a little bit later in the show. You're going to want to stick around for this one. It is big. But first, Brad, we want to talk about Survivor Series. It's been a big weekend, as it always is, this close to Christmas. Have you had a chance to watch Survivor Series? Should we crack into it?
Yeah, let's. Literally finished it half an hour ago. Dion raced across to work to pick up some gear that I have to take to the cricket this week. Big test match coming up for the Black Caps. So it's fresh in the mind, which is good. Like, it's good to be fresh in the mind, I think. Because, it gives us a chance to react, So,
yeah, let's do it. Well, that's what we're talking about this week. It is our top story, Survivor Series. How good was Petco Park? Man, I love these baseball stadium shows. We obviously don't get as many of them now as we used to. It's a real throwback to the 70s and 80s, and 46,000 people in attendance, the largest audience in Survivor Series history. And it kicked off with the women's War Games match. A lot to talk about in this one. A lot of key moments. Charlotte and Asuka kicking things off, I thought was a masterstroke. AJ Lee scaling the cage as Becky Lynch was desperately trying to keep her out. Charlotte Flair saving Rhea Ripley from the misting, Lash Legend getting plenty of spotlight, and what would War Games be without Io Sky jumping off the top of the cage with a trash can over her head and nailing her opponents down in the ringside area, although this time was a little bit more worried than last year, even though last year I was there live. And that finish, Becky Lynch, the look on her face as she realizes she's the last woman standing, she eventually taps out to AJ Lee's Black Widow, although as Becky would attest, she was simply waving her teammates over. Brad, what did you think of Women's War Games? Do you think they knocked this one out of the park?
It was a by-the-by women's WWE War Games match. So anyone who watched Blood and Guts a couple of weeks ago, you were never going to get what those 10 women put their bodies through, 12 women a couple of weeks ago. So if you compare it to the other main roster War Games matches, it was good. It was really, really good. I don't know about you. I just felt like I was wanting a bit more. And the storytelling in the match was really good. And it was clearly setting up to be Becky as the person who was going to lose that match for her team, given the position she put herself in before the match with I'm the greatest of all time, this is my team, all that sort of stuff. And then, I don't know if you noticed it, but there would have been, maybe 4 or 5 cutaways like directly to her face, looking worried at certain points of the match. And that was, of course, caveated at the end with that look away when she realized that she was the only one of her team still standing. So it was enjoyable. I have to say, a lot of the girls really brought their A game with their ring gear. I thought that Charlotte looked fantastic. She looked like an absolute superstar, Dion. And I thought, and I know she was doing that for a really good cause. I thought Nia Jax looked pretty awesome in the lighter colors. So look, it was a good match. Io Sky was the MVP for me. I just don't think it quite hit the heights that I'd hoped to. And maybe more on that later, where I think WWE's at with the War Games concept anyway. But it wasn't bad. It wasn't amazing. It was just really good.
Feels like War Games is often a bit of a means to an end, doesn't it? That it's almost a setup for what's coming next. At least that's what this year has felt like.
Which it shouldn't be.
It shouldn't be, but I think for War Games to truly be special, there's got to be some form of shocker. And I don't know if that's simply a result of CM Punk returning a couple of years ago, or the fact that we're a little bit more used to these War Games matches now because they've been around for a few years now since they returned to WWE. I thought it was a really good match. It was solid.
Solid,
again,
good
like
word.
you, there was no point in the match where it felt like this was the greatest War Games match of all time. And of course, that's
Certainly wasn't that.
very tough for anyone in the modern era to try and get to. But I thought the women did a fantastic job. Completely agree with you. And what a great story Charlotte Flair's gear. And hasn't she come a long way in these past 6 months, especially that association with Alexa Bliss? Charlotte Flair has gone from being someone that nobody wanted to see on TV to all of a sudden being incredibly popular again. And I don't know about you, but I feel like cheerleading her a little bit more.
Yeah, and I like the story WWE's telling her from a human side of things, right? Where they've talked about how she's not well liked in the locker room, which I don't know if that's true or not, and how Alexa was her only friend. And now you're doing this thing with her helping this young 8-9-year-old girl out who's got brain cancer, which is really, really sad but we're both dads to young girls. And I kind of hope, my hope is that if they are heading towards an Alexa Charlotte sort of WrestleMania program, that Alexa's the one who turns heel, because I think she's the person who probably needs that to her character, a little bit of edge. And I would like them to sort of hold back now on the Queen gimmick and just Charlotte the person she didn't come out looking like a queen or a goddess, whatever it is tonight. She just came out wearing a really cool jacket, awesome ring gear, and just, I know she's the queen, but let's move away from that and more just Charlotte the person who wants to be the best in the world. That's what I'd like to see them do with her. I thought she was really good in the match as well. She had moments to shine, and she did. But yeah, Becky and Io for me were the two people that were the MVPs.
Yeah, absolutely. The cynic in me, though, thinks that we're going to see Charlotte Flair turn at some stage very soon on Alexa Bliss, and they're going to be going at each other at WrestleMania.
I think that's the match. I think it's the match, but I really hope they go the other way and they have Alexa. And just let Charlotte ride this wave of positivity with the fans behind her. I think they've got something there, Dion. They really do. And she feels fresh. This version of Charlotte, I'm not bored of her. I'm not tired of her. I want to see more of her. So, I really like where they're headed. I don't want to see her go back to the bitchy queen that is, I don't want to see that. Give me more of who she is as a person, and bring that out on her.
And this is a good news story for WWE, because when you've got someone like Charlotte Flair, who obviously is incredibly talented, has had one of the greatest careers in women's wrestling history, there was a point, again, sort of 6-8 months ago, where it felt like her stock had lowered to a point that didn't feel like her career was going to be going for too much longer. They've managed to turn that around. I like what you're saying about perhaps she sticks around and maybe Alexa Bliss turns on her. That takes us to match number 2. Dominic Mysterio, no surprises here from a booking point of view.
Called it.
Reclaiming the Intercontinental Championship against John Cena. To me, this was the match of the night, certainly the moment of the night, as John Cena's PLE career is over. And how emotional was that entrance? Cena coming in and touching hands with everyone on the front row, Tron side, commiserating with Stu, who looked like he had fallen over as he was trying to shuffle backwards with Cena's entrance. And just a real human moment, I think. We often see that connection. We always see that connection between Cena and Stu. Tonight felt different. It felt like we were a part of those two saying goodbye for this part of John Cena's career. But man, what a night for Dominic Mysterio. Before the bell rang, I don't know if you felt this way, if it was different for you, but before the bell even rang, I had for the first time ever that thought of Dominic Mysterio as a main eventer.
Yeah, mate, he is. And on November the 11th, November 30th as we record this, Dominic Mysterio will be a world champion inside 12 months. It's going to happen. And you're right. He is an absolute bona fide superstar. And this was the making of Dom Mysterio. And I get there were shenanigans, but there has to be shenanigans. It's John Cena's second to last match. It's his last ever PLE match. Despite the fact that I thought there was a slim chance that he could have lost clean in this match, storyline wise, it was brilliant. Liv Morgan's return, as I predicted character, but just not in the light that I thought it was. She's back, which is great. She's with Dom, great pairing. Love the swerve. That was really awesome. And I really like, I think we're going to see some friction now between her and Roxanne, and maybe Raquel's involved in that as well. So really looking forward to where they go with that and where they go with Dom. As for John Cena, this felt like a really special moment for him, I think, and I felt like it was the only time of the night, Dion, where the crowd was engaged from moment one to the 1, 2, 3 count. They were fully invested in it, and I think they were sort of in and out throughout the night, which kind of like credit to a guy like Triple H, who we only have 4 matches on a card when 2 of them are 55 minutes long. The crowd is going to come in and out, right, with their attention span, but they were glued to this matchup. And I thought John's performance was excellent. And Dom looked like an absolute superstar. I love the finish. I love that the referee showed that he's not stupid. How many times do referees just let people get away with stuff? And he's like, no, I'm not counting the 3. No. You were faking a shoulder injury. So, and I love the little throwback to the Penta injury from Raw a couple of weeks ago, and the crowd was groaning, and it felt like they were heading towards that. But yeah, really enjoyed the match. Dominic Mysterio, absolute superstar. He's destined for a big time run. And I think, come Money in the Bank, he would be my favorite to win the Money in the Bank title next year, briefcase next year, and cash in at some point. The dude is a bona fide superstar. WWE have something very, very special in Dom Mysterio, and I'm pretty sure they'll do right by him.
The Dom got me for a moment there. There was a split second, maybe it was about 20 seconds, where I thought to myself, has Dom actually suffered a catastrophic injury here? And my mind started racing, thinking, what can they do if this guy can't continue the match? Now what? Now what? And I loved the interference from Roxanne Perez and Rochelle Rodriguez.
It was awesome.
I thought it was fantastic, them getting physical with John Cena. It was the shenanigans match of the night, because, of course, we saw all of Judgment Day coming out. I think if we had thought that was going to happen a couple of weeks ago, we would have thought it was a terrible idea. But I think it worked so well in the lore of Judgment Day. And I don't think it's a waste being John Cena's second last match ever, his final PLE match. I thought they told a great story. It elevated Dominic Mysterio damn near to the moon. The guy kicked out of an AA, and that is rarefied air. So that again goes to show the lengths that John Cena wants to go to elevate this talent on his way out the door. And man, the low blow by Liv. I don't know if you thought it was a botched slap on Dom. I initially did.
But it was a botched slap on purpose, which is great. That's brilliant storytelling. And you've got like Liv Morgan, for me, MVP of WWE the last couple of years. She has held that show together. She's amazing. So I've got 2 thoughts on this as we move forward, Dion. First of all, does this change your mind on whether or not John Cena wins his last match? I'll be really interested to see what your thoughts on that. And secondly, Raquel Rodriguez, the WWE she could be a monster babyface. There's something about her, man. Like she's really 8 or 9 months ago, Kevin Nash on his podcast said she needs to work her size. And she's been doing that. She picked up John Cena like he was Rey Mysterio and slammed him to the mat. Like, I really think with the right angle and the right storytelling, they could make her a huge babyface. Keep her on a different show to Rhea, but like she could be the Rhea Ripley of whatever brand Rhea's not on, if you know what I mean. So, those are 2 thoughts I have from that. Like, first of all, do you agree with me around Raquel? And does this change your opinion on whether or not John Cena wins his last match or not?
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you with Raquel, though I think she's the third wheel out of the females in Judgment Day. I think the real story in Judgment Day is going to be Roxanne Perez and Liv Morgan. Whether that leads to she's going to
be stuck in the middle.
She is, and whether that leads to the point where she needs to pick a lane, or whether she's like, do you know what, I'm out of here, and then moves on. Either way, there is much more to Raquel Rodriguez that we could see in an already in a division that is traffic jammed I really think that she can come up. She can be a real megastar in this division. I hope it happens. It hasn't changed my mind. I still think, looking at the 4 semi-finalists in the tournament, you have to think, and I know last week you talked about the possibility of an LA Knight or a Jey Uso, but it seems like the smart money is still on Gunther coming out on top of the tournament and being put over by Cena in that final match. It serves no purpose for John Cena to win his final match other than the crowd going home happy. To be honest, though, we're not going to care. If we go through with the thought that you had 6 or 8 weeks ago when you first mentioned similar to a WrestleMania 13 finish, right? Where Cena gets knocked out by the sleeper, Gunther celebrates, he goes to the ramp, pyro goes off, whatever, he leaves. John Cena sits up and gets the adulation for the next 10 minutes. We will have forgotten about the match because all of the focus will be on Cena at that time. Subsequent to that, we're going to be reminded of who won that match because Gunther will be telling us for the next 5 or 6 years. So it hasn't changed my mind on that. I take it you're still in.
So do you know why I think potentially he may win that last match?
Why's that?
Because the most important person in this whole story in the next 2 weeks is Dominic Mysterio, right? So he out of the last month, who has John Cena made? He has made Dominic Mysterio with in-ring promos and two matches plus a tag team match. So if Dominic Mysterio is the last person on earth to beat John Cena in a wrestling match, he will be able to have. You remember Chris Jericho? I'm the only guy to beat Stone Cold on The Rock in one night.
Yeah.
Right? That is what Dominic Mysterio could use to catapult him in the future. And like, you're right, we won't remember the match in 10 minutes. And like, this is why I'm not convinced Gunther's winning now. And I feel like, and potentially, if the person I think is the person that was under the mask in the main event, who I believe is in the final 4 of this tournament, is the person that I think it is, then I do believe that we are going to be getting LA Knight and John Cena's last match. And I think we're about to see the capitulation of the LA Knight character going off the deep end. This is just what I'm feeling. I could be way off the mark. But yeah, I'll save that for the final match when I give my thoughts on how that played out.
That is a hot take, Mr. Lewis. That is a real hot take. I don't think many people would be picking that. Certainly haven't seen any buzz online about that subsequent to Survivor Series. Everyone's thinking, we'll get to that main event, but everyone's thinking Austin Theory, yeah. So we shall see. Match number 3, I'm going to be completely honest. The 46,000 in attendance would have found it very difficult to stay in tune with this match. I did as well. It's a tough spot for these women to be in between the main event and John Cena's final PLE match. They did get to see the Devil's Kiss a couple of times. Though to me, in a PLE, which is one of the tentpole events of WWE, being Survivor Series, with all respect to Nikki Bella, this could have been a Raw main event. Do you think this match 100%. Should have been a Survivor Series?
I think that it was, look, the only place you could put this match was between, if you're going to start the night with the Women's War Games match, the only place you can put this match is between the John Cena match and the Men's War Games match. That's the only place it can go, which means when I'm booking this card and I'm Paul Levesque, I'm like, I can't do that to Stephanie and Nikki. Let me give them a main event on the Monday Night Raw, just been or the Monday Night Raw in a couple of nights' time, right? And potentially, could you have not had the Team Sami Zayn versus Team Solo Sikoa match in there, right? Like as a replacement for that, or could you have not had potentially one of the John Cena tournament matches in there? I don't know. Like, it doesn't really matter. I just don't think that we did any service to the characters of Nikki Bella and Stephanie Vaquer, putting them in that spot where it was always going to be a fart in the wind. It was the bathroom break. It was the go and stock up my beer before the main event match. And look, Stephanie Vaquer is awesome. I think she's heading towards a Mania program with Rhea Ripley, which is going to absolutely slap. And if it's not Rhea, it's going to be Bianca. So I'm here for that, right?
Yeah.
And I think Nikki deserved better as well. I just feel like you could have main evented Raw with those two. You would have been able to tell the same story. So I think that was a massive miss on WWE's behalf. And it was a dud. It was just a dud. and I did not get any enjoyment out of that match whatsoever. And it looked like both the girls were phoning it in, if I can be completely honest with you.
I mean, look, it is for the Women's World Championship, so no one's saying that it doesn't deserve to be on one of the major PLEs. And we don't know what the deal is that Nikki Bella has, whether this is the end of her deal. I can't imagine she's sticking around for any length of time beyond WrestleMania, though, again, I could be completely wrong. And perhaps that deal includes a certain number of PLE matches, so maybe this was, whether it was contractual or whether it's a case of let's give Steph a PLE victory. The two are certainly talented enough and big enough names to fit on a PLE, but yeah, I think maybe that Survivor Series match would have been nice to be on there. But again, we've got 2 War Games matches, so that would feel a little bit much. Maybe a good idea would have been not just a semi-final of the John Cena tournament, but if they'd been able to time things so the final was there and maybe there could have been a little bit of interaction, given that it's going to be the only time that Cena and his opponent would be able to be on television together. But
which worries me that Jey Uso is going to be in the final, because he was also in the main event. So,
well, let's get to it. Let's get to the men's War Games match. Might I just say, when Brock Lesnar entered the ring, I thought to myself, what kind of tough human being is Alistair Overeem to have put this beast of a man down at UFC? And Cain Velasquez. Oh my goodness. Brock Lesnar looks like there's 10 humans on the face of the planet at best that could take this man down.
You clearly didn't see Alistair Overeem when he was juiced on horse meat the night that he fought Brock Lesnar and absolutely wiped the octagon floor of the beast.
I remember that. I remember that body shot.
Alistair Overeem looks like Brock Lesnar ate Brock Lesnar. That's how big Alistair Overeem was at that time.
Yeah, but Alistair looks like kind of a nice guy. Brock Lesnar looks like he actually would eat you.
Yes,
do you know what I thought was interesting about this one? In a face War Games team full of superstars, some people would say full of superstars and the Usos. I'm not saying that. Some people would.
Yeah.
Where we've got a CM Punk and a Cody Rhodes, the reigning world champions, and a Roman Reigns who still feels like the guy. How interesting to have the 2 reigning world champions start as 1 and 2. Did you see this coming? Was it interesting to you that they did start? Do you even care what the matchups are before the War Games match proper starts?
I was hoping for Roman and Braun Breaker, if I've been completely honest with you, but Roman was always going to come in last, right? Like, and Brock was always going to be last on their team. Just a point. I feel like this match would have been bigger, no offense to Jimmy Uso, if you'd subbed out Jimmy Uso for Randy Orton. I feel like that just would have had a bit more star power, and even if you'd been able to shoehorn in an LA Knight or something like that, but that's by the by, right? So, the star power in this match was awesome. I love the opening. And to be fair, when CM Punk came out, I'm like, well, Drew's coming in next, and then it was Braun Breaker, which my son called. He said it was going to be Braun Breaker, and it was really good, and that's clearly right. The vision that WWE have moving forward. At the end of the match, Braun Breaker gets the pinfall after the spear and the interference from whoever that was. And I think we are setting up for a program going into Royal Rumble where I believe Braun Breaker will become the new World Heavyweight Champ and defeat CM Punk. I think that was foreshadowed in this match. Bronson Reed needed more of him, Dion. Everything he does is awesome. And they gave him that sort of 2 minutes when he came out with tsunami. I wanted more of that. Like, I feel like I need more of him on my screen. Braun Breaker was featured very, very heavily at points of this game. The focus was definitely to make him a star tonight, right? Yes. I totally get it.
And they did.
But I thought, if from a storytelling perspective, if you look at this match, Logan Paul was the MVP for his team because he saved them on 3 occasions from pinfall losses. Yeah. So hopefully that gets told in the story where Logan Paul talks about how he was the MVP. I thought he was excellent, did not look out of place in this match. Brock looked like Brock looks. He's an absolute weapon. Roman Reigns is what Roman Reigns is. He's an absolute weapon. Jimmy Uso, I was kind of hoping that what they're doing with this whole Jimmy Uso thing is elevating him, but he just sort of, if I can be completely honest with you, man, he was completely out of place in this matchup. Like, again, a Sami Zayn would have been better off there than a Jimmy Uso. And my biggest gripe in this match, where you've got 10 men who are fighting inside a cage and a match concept that goes back to 1983. why the heck are you doing the run it back with Jey Uso in the middle of the match?
Yeah.
It just was cringe.
Yeah.
It was gimmick, and they're going to get roasted for that.
Yep.
And it's going to make people hate Jey even more than they already do. Right? Like, man, the dude's the most hated man on the internet wrestling community. People do not like him. He's the most popular wrestler when his music hits in the building. But like, yeah, I didn't enjoy that, Dion. And the match didn't need it. And as I moved to the end of the match, I think LA Knight's the person under the mask. Actually, I don't even think it mattered. They could have had anyone under the mask. It doesn't really matter.
Yes.
It's just whoever they decide, whoever they reveal it as is whoever they reveal it as. I may be fantasy booking here, but I really, really hope it's LA Knight and that we're heading towards him being the new, being tied to Paul Heyman and the Vision. If you can't beat him, join him philosophy. And he's been the odd man out in this whole thing the last couple of months where he hasn't been involved in this at all. And then the friction between Cody and Roman is absolutely 1,000,000% convinced me that Roman Cody 3 is what's happening at WrestleMania.
Real interesting.
And Cody Rhodes is going to be a heel in that matchup.
Yeah.
Like, even if he's not a heel, he'll get booed out of the building because we all want to see the OTC reclaim his throne and win that title. But from a match perspective, I thought the match was really, really good. I thought it was better than last year's War Games match.
Yeah.
Everyone shone where they could. Especially the big sort of big seven that were in the match for me. But yeah, more Bronson Reed, please. More Bronson Reed.
It feels like we mentioned earlier, that War Games is a bit of a stepping stone towards Royal Rumble and WrestleMania season. But there are so many interweaving stories that we still don't know the answers to. Yes, the mystery man. By the way, I'm glad we don't know who the mystery man is by the time we went off the pay-per-view. I'm sick of bomb, reveal, shock.
Yeah.
Let's have fans debate for at least 48 hours until Raw, right? But we've got Roman Reigns and Brock Lesnar. Let's not forget, there's something happening there.
That's happening, eh?
Absolutely.
That's
Roman
a Rumble
Reigns,
match. Calling it now.
Yeah, I think there's a higher
like the winner
likelihood than WrestleMania.
The winner gets entry into the Rumble or something like that, or the winner gets number 30 or something like that. Like that is 100% happening at the Rumble. They're clearly building to that.
I think it'll be standalone. We're not going to see them at WrestleMania. At least I hope we don't see them at WrestleMania.
I just feel like the Rumble needs both of those dudes in it, and I think or one of them at least in terms of star power. And Roman's my pick to win it. So I don't know if you have that match at the Rumble. Maybe it won't be at John Cena's last match, right? They're not going to take the gloss off that. No. So to me, the only place that makes sense is either the Rumble or Elimination Chamber. So we'll see what happens.
And of course, we've got Bron Breakker and CM Punk now. There's obviously something that's going to come of this. What I am particularly happy about is that Bron Breakker isn't paralyzed this evening.
Oh my goodness, Dion
because
McCracken.
the Doomsday device was not great. It was not great, and that could have gone terribly pear-shaped. We're talking centimeters away from paralysis or worse.
I hope he's okay. And like, he certainly seemed to be afterwards, but he's a tough dude. He might be good at selling the fact that he's not injured. But man, when he hit that, I literally closed my eyes and cringed. And like, look, I mean, I've never wrestled a second of wrestling in my life, but to me, Cody's too short. Like, in terms of to have a Bron Breakker on it, and like that was never going to go well. And there's no way they would have rehearsed that. So look, I don't know, Dion. That was just the heart attack was awesome. Love that. That was choice. But yeah, like don't know we did it. Why not just do the demolition elbow drop if you're gonna like recall like a tag? I know they were called they harp back to the Heart Foundation, but why not do a demolition elbow drop or a brainbusters spike pile driver or something, rather than a move like the Doomsday device, which it's not done by people anymore for a reason. Because, those two men, Animal and Hawk, perfected that. They figured it out. So that was a bit silly for me. But I think the match was way better than the women's match. Like, I got more enjoyment out of it. It had more stakes. As I throw back a question to you, who is under the mask?
Look, I still think it's probably Austin Theory. If the rumors are to be believed, I do like your theory. I guess what I'm struggling with is, why would LA Knight be attacking CM Punk at this stage? Why would he not be? Why would he not have been under a mask with Dom interfering in that match? Other than the fact that it would have taken away from the Liv Morgan moments. I think it's really interesting. I think it would be great for something to be from out of left field, but I think the smart money is on Austin Theory still.
I don't want them to reveal this until maybe the Rumble and have this dude just randomly. And you do what what WCW did with the Masked Man back in 1994 when they had Masked Men attack Hulk Hogan. Now the reveal sucked because it ended up being Brutus Beefcake, right? So and that was the match for Starrcade. But I think Arn Anderson worked under the mask a lot, and there are other dudes as well. So just keep having Masked Men attack Punk now, and just give me more intrigue, and let's not reveal it until we absolutely need to, potentially when the title's on the line. I don't know. I have a hope for LA Knight because I'm desperate for him to get the kudos that he deserves, and I don't think it's going to happen as a babyface. And look, you could just say, look, I was sick of getting beaten up by these dudes. I deserved my one-on-one match. I never got it. I got screwed by Jey Uso in the Battle Royal, and his brother. Like, I don't know. I just and Paul Heyman can be the ultimate, mastermind behind this whole thing and the manipulator, and it's a chance for LA Knight to get one over Seth Rollins as well. So that's just me fantasy booking, Dion. Yeah. That's all that is.
I do have a couple of gripes about the production. Usually I'm pretty easy to please, but I'm getting a bit sick of the announcers' mics being cut for us international fans. It feels like we're being left out of the show, even though it's it's generally they're in advertising, but oftentimes it sounds like they're leading into talking about programming. And I get there are commercial responsibilities, and there'll be parts of contracts that will say this segment must be played to the American audience, but not internationally because we have other arrangements. I get it. This stuff is obviously becomes trickier when you're airing in 180 plus countries. Maybe if it was a little bit cleaner, those cuts, it wouldn't be so bad. But you see these crowd shots that are just slowly zooming with no graphic for about 20 seconds, and you're just like, let us know when we're allowed to come back into the show. So I am getting a little bit sick of that. And again, this will be for commercial reasoning. But during the Survivor Series, we see this the ad break music, or we'll return soon music happening between each ad break. I don't know what happens on ESPN Plus. It'd be interesting if we got any American.
They get ads. They get actual ads. Yeah, this is a massive gripe for the US. Massive gripe for the US audience is they're paying for a PL. Not even the UFC has adverts in the middle of their PLEs, right? So, and they're on ESPN Plus. So, look, massive gripe for the US audience is they're getting 3-minute commercial breaks in their PLEs. Yeah,
and we're also in a period of what can be sold will be sold. I was looking at the ring apron and how littered with advertising and marketing materials that it was. We're used to that now. I think it'd probably look strange if there was a blank canvas. You would be super used to it with all of the UFC and MMA you've watched over the years. Maybe we can delve into this at some stage, but I did work with someone from WWE about 10 years ago whose job it was to determine what they could commercialize. What can we sell? One of the things he talked about was the entranceway. He said, we've got all of this space that we could sell. The guy didn't last long in the organization, but it just goes to show that this is something from long before the TKO days, but TKO have certainly taken it to the next level. But yeah, man.
I think at some point we're going to have LA Knight is sponsored by Reebok for this match, and Roman Reigns is sponsored by Nike for this. I think we're going to head to that point at some point. I mean, TKO is making bank, bro. Serious bank. And I see a lot of discourse online about, WWE's creatives in the toilet. Like, they're a failing company. They're going to be out of business in 3 or 4. No, they're not, man. They signed like a $200 million deal with the Saudis. I think it was a $1 billion deal with Saudi and they got another 5 years to left run on that contract. The amount of advertising on their ring apron and on the ring itself, mate, they would have made more money today than they would have done in the entirety of 1995, for instance. So,
absolutely.
And they just sold 45,000 seats for a Survivor Series PLE that had 4 matches, Dion. 4 matches.
Yeah.
45,000 people. They're going nowhere. Nowhere.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. So yeah, look, it was a solid event. It does feel like a means to an end pay-per-view at the moment. It did again last year, as we spoke about earlier, but still a solid show. Good PLE for me. Absolutely, John Cena and Dom Mysterio was the moment and match of the night. What was the one big takeaway as we wrap this up?
The one big takeaway for me was the clear directive to make Bron Breakker a superstar in that match. So obviously Dom Mysterio was huge, right? I get that. But from the moment he got in, when Michael Cole and Wade Barrett were talking about, oh, Paul Heyman said this guy's going to have a future main event. He's going to be a future world champion. He had a lot of big spots in that match. And then the last 2 minutes of that match were completely and utterly focused on Bron Breakker taking out every person in the opposition team, including the big dog Roman Reigns, which on the production side they missed, which I thought was very, very poor.
All right, after the break, we spent some time speaking with Hooligan Marcus Kool. We've got that interview after the break and that big announcement about Southern Pro Wrestling.
Hey, this is Brendan Vink, and you're listening to That Sweet Pop.
Our guest today is a genuine veteran of the business, getting a start in his native UK and now boasting 22 years of ring experience. Co-founder of Invercargill-based Southern Pro Wrestling, this two-time SPW Heavyweight Champion and Southern Rumble winner also has Charlotte Flair's doctor and Drake Maverick's groomsman on WWE television on his resume. A massive football fan, his love for the beautiful game serves as inspiration for his in-ring character, though now he finds himself recovering from major knee surgery. But you'd be a fool to think his wrestling career is even close to being done. Ladies and gentlemen, joining us from the beautiful Deep South, it is Hooligan Marcus Kool.
Yeah.
Boys, what an intro. My God. That was all over
Welcome,
the place
Hooligan.
too, wasn't it? I mean, wow. I don't think I've ever heard anybody drop the Charlotte Flair doctor in there. That's so good.
Oh, we've got all sorts. We've been doing the research. The
real research, I can tell.
How you doing? You good?
I'm good, lads. Yeah, I'm really good. Yeah, as you mentioned, I've just come out of ACL surgery. So I'm about 8 days post-op, and I'm feeling pretty good, surprisingly. I'm off crutches at the moment. I'm kind of walking around with full weight. Mobility's a lot better than I was expecting. Doctor's pretty happy with progress, and I've got my first gym session next week to try and get stuck back into it. So feeling pretty good under the circumstances.
Marcus, I've got to ask, like, the Hooligan is a great moniker, right? Like, it's apt for you and your character is awesome. But being a Villa fan, and commiserations, when you're a heel, do you think about just calling yourself the villain? But like to rep Villa? Like, I kind of feel like you could pull that off,
mate. Do you know, I was going to. So it's funny you say that, but the reason I didn't was because there was a guy at the time called Marty Scurll, and he was going under that moniker, so I couldn't do it. I was gutted.
He got in first.
Yeah.
But before we get into the wrestling stuff, where did your love for Aston Villa come from? I love this stuff. Look, I'm a Liverpool supporter, and I discovered Liverpool as a young kid watching an FA Cup final, Everton-Liverpool one morning. And my nana said, you have to pick a side. She was a Crystal Palace supporter, and she just said, you pick a side. And red was my favorite color, so I went with Liverpool. And since 1985, I've been a passionate Liverpool supporter, which isn't a great thing at the moment. But where did your love for Villa come from?
It's really not a great thing for you guys at the moment. Hey, I can't believe it. I thought you guys were going to run away this season, especially signing Isaac.
If we could play Villa every week, we'd be fine, mate. But unfortunately, we can't. So.
Dude, we were so excited about playing you. We were like, they're shocking at the moment. Like, we're playing really well. Like, this is our perfect opportunity to take them down. Of course.
Yeah.
Of course we lost to Liverpool on our run. Unbelievable. I think you're the only ones. I think we're the only ones you guys have beaten in like 10 games or something crazy.
Indeed. Yes. Yeah. Anyway, your
love for Aston Villa. So funny enough, my grandfather, Rolly Morris, used to play for Aston Villa. So he was a striker for them back in the day, back in the 60s. Wow. He was actually on the lineup when they won the FA Cup, which is pretty cool. I've got a picture of him somewhere in the lineup with the trophy. So it's always running in the family, all Villa supporters, all Villa fans. So it's pretty ingrained in me.
Brilliant.
Unfortunately, I didn't take on the genes. I'm not a professional football player earning $100,000 a week.
Well, you are a professional wrestler. And I imagine your love for wrestling obviously spawned in the UK back home. How did you find yourself falling in love with wrestling? How did you find yourself stepping into the ring for the first time?
Mate, I am a typical 90s teenager story. I fell in love with Bret the Hitman Hart when I first watched professional wrestling.
You can stay.
I loved the look. I loved everything that he did in the ring. I loved his aggression. I loved the color. I loved the sunglasses. I was just drawn into Bret. I was suckered in. And then Stone Cold Steve Austin came along and WrestleMania 14 happened. And from that point onwards, if I wasn't hooked already, I was then. You know, that whole story with Bret and Austin and the double turn and the sharpshooter and the blood, man, from that point onwards, I was a wrestling fan for life, you know, hooked.
Can you take us through some of those early days of training? Now, I know you worked with some people from, World of Sport heritage. You ended up tagging with Scotty 2 Hotty from the Attitude Era that we were talking about earlier. How did it shape you into being the wrestler that you became?
Like a lot of guys in the UK at the time, I started really young. So I started when I was 14 years old. So again, right at that time, Austin Bret is happening. It's the pinnacle. I'm like 12, 13, and I'm just in love with professional wrestling. I'm taping it on VHS on Friday, Saturday nights. I'm getting up early in the morning and missing school. I'm obsessed with it. I've got all the merch. My dad's sick of hearing about it. He just wants me to play football and watch Sunday League with him. And I'm just all about Bret the Hitman Hart and Stone Cold Steve Austin. But crazy enough, Birmingham, well, it still is, it's a bit of a hotbed for pro wrestling and independent wrestling. And a friend that I went to school with, his older brother was wrestling at the time on the independents. And he went to a training school that was literally about 10, 15-minute drive from where I live. So I badgered my mom and dad for a long time to take me to that school. And the trainings were on a Sunday. And a Sunday was when I was playing footy. At the time, I was actually doing quite well for football. I was actually getting Aston Villa trials. Whether that was off the back of my granddad's name or not, I'm not sure. But I was getting trials and I was doing fairly well at the time. And wrestling training was ran on a Saturday, Sunday. And I think my dad was just, you could see like the excitement and the passion in me to go to wrestling. But I think he knew if that happens, he's out of footy completely, because that's the same days. But fair play to him. He eventually gave up. And he took me along to the training school. It's called K-Star Wrestling. They're still going to this day. And it was run by a bloke called Steve Logan, who was a World of Sport wrestler back in the day. Right. And I was fascinated with Steve when I started researching him, because he had wrestled with Bret. He had tag teamed with Owen when they did the circuits in the UK. So I was instantly, mesmerized by Steve Logan. And it just happened to be the training school that was 10, 15 minutes from the road from me. So I went along to that training school. I still remember my first day like it was yesterday, taking the first bumps, doing the holds. And I think I was just a genuine natural with it, because I'd watched it so much and studied it so much. And I guess like every kid back then, backyarding and and do whatever you could to have some fun. I just naturally took it on, and I was always a sports guy as well. I was always playing sports as a kid. So from that point on, I was flying, and unfortunately, soccer, footy took a back seat, and I was all in for pro wrestling.
I'm interested in you talk about your obsession with Bret Hart. I was as well. I think my first ever computer password was Hitman. Right, that was my first ever password. He's like my favorite all-time wrestler. But him and Stone Cold are very, very different in terms of characters, and even I mean, Austin obviously extremely technical as well, but Bret is literally probably the greatest wrestling technician of all time. Like, what was it about Bret that you like? Because for me, I fell in love with the Hart Foundation, right? So I was familiar with Bret before his singles team. But what was it about Bret that just connected with you?
I've thought about this a lot, because you're completely right. They're two totally different characters and styles. And there's one word for me that sticks out and is what owns it: believability. Both of them, when you watch them, you believe everything they're doing. And I think that for me is what it is. I just connect. I get it. I believe. They sucker me in, and they're just the best of the best. That's the only word I can choose to describe them that connects them both so strongly.
Well, that makes complete sense, because that's a word I would use to describe your style, believability. Because with respect to the multitudes of fantastic wrestlers in New Zealand, it feels like the game steps up when you step in the ring. I'm not just saying that because you're our guest this week. The intensity certainly rises, and I think you'd be looking long and hard for anyone sitting in that audience that doesn't think this guy could beat the crap out of me. So believability is something that you bring. Is that something that you learnt in the UK in the training? Is it something that came naturally, or something that had to be like pulled out of you?
Thanks, Dion. I really appreciate that, mate. I think because I was brought up with Brad and Steve, and I was so obsessed with them, and I studied them so much, it probably did leak into my work. But I think the trainers that I've had over the years, including Steve, and I can go into a couple of the others, they did always drill down the believability factor and the intensity. To me, it's always been, if you don't believe in yourself and if you don't believe in what you're doing, nobody else in the crowd is. So you've really got to, when you go through the cone, you've really got to switch on and get in the zone. You've got to close everything else off that's going on, and you've got to be that character, and you've got to be that person. And because if you don't believe it, nobody else is going to believe in you either. So that's always just something I've tried to carry in any of my work, and in any of the moves, the movements, the walks, the facials, anything that I'm doing, I've just got to 100% believe it. But that has definitely come down from the people I've learned over the years, and I've just tried to emulate.
So on that, to be believable, you've got to have a partner that plays ball as well, right? Because the reason that match is so perfect, as you so eloquently put it, is because those two guys are so believable. So how important is it when you're trying to make yourself believable to have a partner in the ring that goes that way as well?
That's a really good question, Brad. And it is really important. And I actually struggle to find those people. I can name a couple in New Zealand off the top of my head, and Dion's actually worked closely with one of them and has actually been involved in one of those matches, and one of those guys is Niwa. I think me and Niwa had amazing chemistry. I used to love wrestling and performing with Niwa. I'd always come out worse because goddamn, that guy can hit hard. And I forget that I'm like half the size of him, but I'm just so in the zone with my hooligan character. We talk before we go out, and we're like, hey, let's just get stuck in here. And I love that style, as long as you're not, intentionally hurting one another. But man, I'd come out of some of those matches with Niwa and be so banged up afterwards. But like, that was such a bad idea. Like, he's such a big dude and beast. But I think Niwa, back when I first met Niwa, he was actually one of my first matches for IPW as Johnny Idol. Come full circle, he came back from the UK after COVID and came to SPW as Niwa. And I actually kind of intertwined that with the story of me and Niwa, because I always I love having a story. Like, you've got to build something into what you're doing to make people be interested in it, and connect with it. Quick side piece on that. One of the things that Steve Logan taught me, and it always stuck with me, was you're at school and you see a fight break out. Everybody rushes to watch the fight, right? Because everybody wants to see a fight at school. And one of the first questions that people ask is, why are these guys fighting? And as soon as you hear, it's because this guy slept with his bird, or this guy's with his girlfriend, then you become so much more invested in the fight, right? Because there's investment there then. Like, you're already enjoying the fight. Yeah, you can watch you can watch two guys beat each other up. It's, it's a bit of fun. It's fine. But if you know why and there's like a reason for that, it just draws you in even more. So I've always tried to have some type of reason, no matter how small I am on the card, or what position I'm playing, to get people invested in those fights. Sorry, that was a bit of a sidekick there, but it was just a piece of advice that it's always kept with me, and I've always tried to implement. So with Newa, it kind of came full circle, and he came back from COVID from the UK. He'd spent a lot of time there. He wasn't Johnny Idol anymore, and he'd really done a lot of hard work on himself and his character, and more importantly, his believability. Because when I worked with Johnny Idol, I didn't believe Johnny Idol. He was just a kid playing wrestler, and I hate to say that, but he was. And we've all been there. I was for a long time. But when he came back from the UK, man, he was a different person. He was an animal. You believed everything he did. He believed everything he did. And sharing the ring with him was a good time. Man, we did a chain match in Invercargill, which might have been one of my biggest regrets, because, man, it was so brutal. Dion, we had a match in Queenstown, and Queenstown's always such a fun vibe and loud crowd. It was actually one of the quieter ones too, because I think it was immediately out of COVID, or like in the middle of COVID or something. So it was it was actually one of the quiet. Still a great show and still a great crowd, but wrestling near in Queenstown as well, in front of that environment, was a lot of fun. I think me and Dion got stuck into it a little bit too, right?
Yeah, we did. And in fact, I remember I've got a great memory of that match, and I really enjoyed that match. I thought it was fantastic. You and Newa were tremendous. Crowd was great. But I do remember there was one spot where you were going to do the suicide dive to the outside, out to me, because of course I'm getting up to all sorts of mischief. And we did walk through it earlier in the day, and you told me to stand, you told me how to catch you, and I said, do you want to do a run through? I've never caught someone doing a suicide dive before. And you, perhaps foolishly, said, no, mate, I trust you.
Should be right, mate.
And to be honest, that actually filled me full of confidence. I was like, yeah, I got this. And it thankfully went off without a hitch. And you hit me with a suicide dive. I went down, you got up.
And you bloody did catch me too.
I did. I got some compliments on that catch, I'll have you know.
Oh, my God. Whoa! Just when it looked like Marcus Kool was focused on Newa, the Hooligan changes tack.
So the UK, how long were you working in the UK before you moved to New Zealand?
Well, I was 14 when I started, and I debuted on the 30th of July 2004 on main shows, we would call them then. And before then, I was obviously doing academy-style shows. And then I got to New Zealand properly in 2009.
Right.
So it doesn't seem like a long time, but I feel like I did so much during that period in the UK. I think, like you mentioned, I was so fortunate and so lucky. And looking back on it, because I was a bit of a younger kid back then, I didn't really truly appreciate the people I was around and who I was learning from. I'm sure I did, but I don't think I truly understood who I was around and learning from at that period of time. I was reflecting on it. Of course, I've got Steve Logan, who was great and very hands-on. But then I was doing the camps, which are the 6-week holiday tours. And I was doing those with the likes of a guy called, I don't know if you've heard of Johnny Kidd, but he's a world of sport legend, wrestled everybody who's anybody, just full of knowledge. And at the time, even reflecting on it, I just didn't really quite understand how talented that guy was, and how much knowledge I could have pulled from him. But there is one piece of knowledge, I call it knowledge, but it always sticks with me, and it really taught me a lot. I didn't quite realize it at the time, but here's the story. It was my first holiday camp, and I must have been, I was either 16 or 17, so I'm a young kid. And I'm traveling around with a group of guys in the back of a van, and we go from holiday to holiday camp. You arrive there, you set up the ring, you do 2 singles, and then you do a tag as the main event. And you kind of swap roles as you go, and you go from one to the other. And Johnny Kidd was the promoter and the guy in charge of the camp tour. And with this being my first camp tour, I was really excited because I'd heard stories, heard how much fun it was, all the mischief that the guys get up to. And back then, 16, 17-year-old kid, I was like, man, there's going to be some girls at these camps, and they're going to see me wrestling and I'm going to have a good time afterwards at the karaoke bar. And this is going to be a great time. And we remember we pulled up to the first show and we're getting everything compact. And we had our briefing with the promoter, Johnny Kidd, and everyone's quite nervous around Johnny. But again, I'm a 16, 17-year-old kid, so I'm just flying and asking loads of questions and excited. And he's giving us all our roles and what we're doing throughout the tour. And he pulls out this bag of like knockoff Mexican Rey Mysterio style masks. And he goes, we need to sell all these on the tour. So, Mark, you're going to be the masked Mexican wrestler.
Oh, how good.
And it's your job to make sure these sell for the rest of the tour. And I remember, I was obviously just nodding along, yes, sir. But in my head, I was thinking, but what if
no one's going to
know who I am? All the girls are going to know that this was me on the show when I go to the bar afterwards. Like, this is my big break. You should have worn
the mask to the bar.
I should have worn the mask to the bar.
Yeah, that's what our Grande Americano would do. So,
it's true.
You're right. So my biggest lesson there was, this is business. This is about making money. It's not about you. You are simply a character on a show for the promoter, and you are there to do a job for the promoter to make money. And there's nothing more like a slap in the face like that. Sell these masks, kid. Go out there and do some moves.
Do a bit of politicking and call for hair versus mask matches every night, I suppose, is the other option. But this was 20 odd years ago. So then you find yourself shacked up in Queenstown. So what prompted the move to New Zealand?
So I'll kind of go back a little bit, but I was really enjoying pro wrestling in Birmingham. It was probably the only thing I was enjoying there. Like Birmingham, I don't know if you've ever visited the place. Great people, love the people, but like the location itself and everything, like all of the types of opportunity it offers, not that great other than going to watch the Villa and maybe doing a bit of wrestling. But like I say, hotbed for wrestling, the people I learned off and the people that I met there, I mean, just reflecting on it and the guys that were successful coming out of the group of guys that I was with and trained with and came up with from NXT UK. I don't know if you know or familiar with Dave Mastiff. There was Ashton Smith as well, who I actually used to tag with on some of the independent shows. He used to go under the name of Darice Coffey, and he did a Cool Runnings character. And we tag teamed up and called ourselves Cool Runnings, and I was just a typical white guy. And we did so many cheesy moves, pretending that we were running a bobsled.
Brilliant.
I've got a photo of that somewhere. He ended up doing great for himself. Of course, Drake Maverick, Spud, who did end up doing really well for himself in the WWE. And now fast forward, you've got guys like, I think, Pete Dunne, Tyler Bate. So they all kind of come from that Birmingham scene. I'm sure I'm probably missing a load more as well. But I learned from so many people during that time. But back then, although I was very passionate about wrestling, it's actually kind of sad looking at it now. I didn't really see it going anywhere for me as a kid back then. It was very different, the industry. It was big guys. There wasn't really a thriving independent scene. The independents back then were still very much family style, camp style for the kid shows. There was only a splatter of independent shows that were starting to rise here and there and bringing overseas guys from the US and elsewhere in Japan. So there wasn't really a whole lot going on. Again, it was still that you didn't really quite have that digital age yet either. I think maybe YouTube had just become a thing. So there wasn't exposure in terms of what there is now. There wasn't streaming channels. There wasn't YouTube. There wasn't TikTok, Instagram, where people could just put their content out there and get seen. I think even back then I was sending VHS tapes to promoters, all across the UK and Europe with my little highlight reel on just to try and get attention. And the WWE just seems so far gone, so far. Which, looking back now with all the people I, grew up with and trained with, they carried on and smashed it. So that was so fucking cool to see, and still is now. So I always, aside from wrestling, one of the other passions that I always wanted to do, being from Birmingham, was just go traveling and seeing the world, and that was always on my bucket list. So I ended up taking a break when I came out of uni, and I did the typical gap year of going to Asia and traveling around, and I ended up in Australia for like 6 months, I think, in the end. And that's where I ended up meeting a few of the independent guys on the Australian scene over there. I remember like emailing back in the day and trying to find out what was happening over there and what was going on. And I got put in touch with a couple of promotions in Sydney and Queensland, where I was going, made connections in Australia, wrestled a couple of times over there, went back to the UK, wrestled again for like another year or so. And that's when I made the decision to be like, hey, still not quite loving life over here, especially what I've experienced traveling now. I'd really like to go back to the other side of the world. Loved Australia and heard amazing things about New Zealand. So I had a friend that was living in New Zealand at the time, in Queenstown, and just heard amazing things. Love my sports, love outdoors. Got to Queenstown, traveled New Zealand extensively before I got here. But I remember just arriving in this place and being like, man, this place is insane. Like it's beautiful, it's untouched. The people are amazing. It's got that New Zealand but tourist vibe about it too. You know, there's always something happening. It's a bit of fun. I'm not a big city person. I don't like a lot of people. So it's kind of that middle ground as well. Love the outdoors, love being on my bike, love just getting out there and doing all types of sports, and it had everything. So that's kind of, sorry, that was a long-winded answer to that question, but that's kind of how I ended up here.
It's fascinating. So on that, what was the South Island wrestling scene like when you turn up in New Zealand in the late 2010s, or like 2010, 2011? Like, was there even a wrestling scene in the South Island?
There wasn't, mate. There was not, no. I think,
actually,
I think there was like some type of thing happening in Blenheim from memory, but I don't think it was much of anything. I think maybe there was a spattering cry. Dion would probably know this better than me, but from my recall and memory, there was nothing happening at all in the South Island of any note.
I don't know that there was at that time.
So did you think at that point wrestling was done for you? Like that 9-to-5 job, you'd meet a Kiwi lass, you'd settle down for the rest of your life, and no more squared circle for Marcus Hooligan Kool.
I think I'd kind of just put it to the back of my head. I think I was just enjoying my life at the time, and I was still, really young. And I think I was just embracing new experiences and new people. And I'd put it to the back of my mind, but it was always still there. It was still always such a passion. I was always in touch with it, and I was still always in touch with the guys back home and just keeping tabs of what was happening. And I think I was in New Zealand for a little while, and I was doing the odd show for KPW in Wellington at the time, through Liv Morgan, who always treated me really well. And I really liked learning from Rip, actually. He was a really intelligent guy when it came into the business, in my opinion. And I think I'd done a couple of shows for KPW, but I hadn't quite worked with IPW yet. And again, that was probably more on me. I was so casual about it, and I was just kind of living and enjoying my life here. But then I think eventually I must have been put in touch or met a couple of the IPW guys, and we got talking, and they were doing some type of Armageddon show down in Dunedin. And because I was South Island based, they were like, yeah, we'd love to have you. And I think I did that show, and I wrestled James Shaw. And it was actually the first time I'd wrestled properly in a wee while. And it's the first time I attempted the hooligan character. And man, me and James just had instant chemistry. I don't know why, but we had so much fun in that match. We had a great time. We hadn't wrestled each other before. We hadn't planned a whole lot either, because a lot of those type of shows, you kind of want to put them on the fly, depending on what's going on with the crowd. And we just hit it off, and I hit it off with everybody else there too. And from that point on, I had an open invitation to come up to IPW and work the shows and meet their guys. And I think that's when I first flew up and did the Eliminator and wrestled Johnny Idol. And then later on, they put me in the Eliminator match. And I was last two with Dal Knox on one of my first shows with them. And again, I think I just got fortunate. Me and Dal had a great chemistry too. Probably that intensity, believability level. Dal's one of those guys as well, I think, that can step it up a notch. And me and him went at it in the final two. And I think I just made a good impression on everybody there. I got on well with everybody. And then that started getting the wheels turning for me with, hey, man, like, there's still wrestling for me in this country. It's still happening. There's some good people here. There's some good talent. And yeah, there was still nothing really happening in the South Island. I think one of the things that got me over with the IPW guys as well was at this Dunedin Armageddon Expo show. They hadn't really interacted too much with the celebrities that were there, and I thought it was an amazing opportunity. Like, anytime you've got a name or something happening, and you can do some type of collaboration or crossover, is gold, you know. And they're all sitting right over there where the ring is. Like, we've got to do something.
And they all watch wrestling.
They all watch wrestling. Yeah, they all love wrestling.
Yes. Yeah.
And I remember I was like, I'm going to take the shot. And there was DJ Qualls was sitting over there, who was the skinny guy from the road trip.
Yeah.
Remember that dude? And
I do.
And I was like, I'm taking my shot. And I went over to the dude and I told him what we were doing over there. And I said, man, if you could get involved somehow, I play this hooligan character who's crazy. If you could get in the ring, and he was a fan, so he knew what I was trying to portray here. And of course, he's a fucking real talented actor, right? He knows the biz. I said, if you just want to jump in and give me a stone cold stunner, dude, I think this place would go crazy. It'd be fun for you. It's fun for us. Fun for the whole show. And man, his eyes lit up. He was like, I can get in the ring and give you a stone cold stunner. I was like, dude, I will jump as high as possible if you hit me with that stone cold stunner. And sure enough, we got DJ Qualls in from the road trip. And I think it was the end of me and James's segment. He jumps. I got on the mic, trash talked the crowd, said, I'm leaving this geek fest. I've had enough. DJ Qualls was there, came in. We had to stand off. I threw a punch. He ducked, gave me a stunner. Obviously, everybody was happy. The boys popped hard. I think that got me over with them. And we were away. But yeah, DJ Qualls. I've got a picture of that somewhere too. Legend.
Oh, we got to see it. And so from there, you decide, why not? Why don't I just add promoter to my resume?
Yeah.
Right. So you co-founded Southern Pro Wrestling with Troy Crosby, who worked as T-Rex. How did that come about? How did you meet Troy, and how did you decide, you know what, Invercargill seems like a hotbed for professional wrestling? Let's start a promotion.
Oh, man. I think it was a lot of different things. Of course, when I got to the South Island of New Zealand, as like a typical wrestler does, every venue I walk into, I'm like, this would be pretty good for some wrestling, you know, it's got a decent roof on it. And I always had it in the back of my mind, hey, there's no wrestling down here. Like, it's untouched. It's crazy. There's nothing happening. And I think in the back of my mind, I was like, I could definitely put on a show. You know, I could definitely, with the connections that I've made now, I'm sure I could do something as like a one-off, or maybe talk to the IPW guys. And then out of the blue, I got a message on Facebook. I think it was Facebook or an email from Troy. And he's from Invercargill. He's an Invercargill boy. And he was just finishing up a stint in Canada where he'd been to train with Lance Storm at the academy, one of their
right.
I think it must have been one of their last. I'm not sure. But yeah, so he had just finished training there, and he'd messaged me and saw that I was a wrestler that was located in Queenstown, which was obviously near Invercargill. And he said, he emailed me and asked me for advice and said, hey, I'm just finishing up the Storm Academy. I'm coming back to Invercargill. I need to come back to Invercargill because that's where I've got work when I immediately get home and family. What advice do you have for me getting involved in the business? And I said, don't come back to New Zealand. I said, there's no wrestling here. Like, if you want to make anything of it, you know, there's nothing for you here. But then we just got talking. And just as you do, it spins and spins. And I'd already had in the back of my mind of doing something. And I thought, if Troy has just finished, you know, this school from the Storm Academy, and he's going to be settled in Invercargill. I'd attempted to do like some type of training in Queenstown, but it hadn't really worked because it's such a transient town with tourists and there's not a lot of population here. And I thought, if ever there's a school that's going to work, it's going to be in Invercargill. Like Invercargill it's actually very renowned for sport. They've got great facilities there. You know, good rugby town. And there's not a lot going on there either. So if there's ever an opportunity to you know, give somebody the chance to learn professional wrestling, Invercargill could be it. So I pitched it to Troy and said, hey, have you thought about maybe opening up a school yourself there? Like if there's nothing for you here, let's create something. And with him being just coming out of the academy, I thought it'd be really fresh and good to have somebody that's just learned the basics and how to do them properly and efficiently right off the back of that, and then come and pass that on to other people, because the basics are so important in wrestling. And it's actually really hard to find good trainers that teach the basics really well. And Troy, it turned out, coming off the back of the Storm Academy, was turned out to be a great teacher. So that lined up and worked out really well. So long story short, we decided, hey, let's start a training school together. Let's see how the training school goes. Troy would take the majority of the classes because he's based in Invercargill. I would come down every weekend and take the classes that weekend. It was a 2-hour drive there and back. So I did that for a long period of time. And let's just make it work and let's just see what happens. We started the school. we had people come through, and then we thought, hey, let's have a crack at a show.
Hey guys, this is Gino Gambino, and you're listening to That Sweet Pop.
Well, that's part one of our interview with Hooligan Marcus Kool. Man, that guy has got some stories. And part two coming up next week. Brad, we know what's coming. There is some hot takes on New Zealand professional wrestling, some really interesting history on New Zealand professional wrestling. What was your take on part one when we spoke about the UK coming to New Zealand at the start of SPW?
Yeah, just first of all, he supports a shit football club, so unlucky, Marcus. You'll never walk alone, my friend. But yeah, man, what a great guy, and just a really interesting story. And the fact that, you know, started 14. Started off at 14, had the cool story about how he wanted to mac on some girls at that show, and then was under a mask. And and interesting that he's turned a career here with Southern Pro Wrestling, which is amazing. And we see him on IPW as well. Like, I think he's great, man. As a wrestling fan, watching Marcus Kool work is a pleasure, and you've worked with him inside the ring, so you would know that as well. But he talked, he talked about believability right at the top there when he talked about Bret Hart and Stone Cold. He's very believable, Marcus Kool. Very believable. Yeah,
he's a good man. He's a good man. And that leads us to a big announcement, an exclusive that we've been given by Southern Pro Wrestling. In that, SPW are very proud to announce the creation of the SPW Hall of Fame, coming on January the 10th, the very first induction ceremony. We got a sneak peek at who those inductees are. That's going to be announced over the next couple of weeks. And I can tell you, these two men, they absolutely deserve to be in the first induction ceremony for SPW in their Hall of Fame. You know what, Brad? SPW very quickly cemented themselves in the New Zealand professional wrestling scene as a promotion to be taken seriously. They really did everything they could to make these shows look top-notch, to make their talent top-notch, and they very quickly got to the point where they were absolutely in the discussion of the top promotions in the country, and they have done for the last decade. So it feels like the time is right for the Hall of Fame for Southern Pro Wrestling. My understanding is at that ceremony on January the 10th, it's a black tie event. It's closed to the public, but it will be filmed. We are going to see some footage coming out. We've got invites, by the way, Brad. So if we can make our way down to Invercargill, we'll certainly be along to that ceremony. So once again, Saturday, January 10th, the very first SPW Hall of Fame induction ceremony. There's going to be a lot more information coming out over the next week or two. And we thank our good friends in Invercargill and the Lower South Island at Southern Pro Wrestling for giving us this exclusive announcement. Congratulations. And man, we look forward to seeing that one. And again, hopefully we can get there, Brad. How good is this?
Oh, it's fantastic. Yep. I have never been to Invers, so certainly keen to tick that off on my bucket list, Mr. McCracken.
Yeah, man, I rate Invercargill. It gets a bit of a rough go, but look, I grew up in Dargaville, so I've got a soft spot for small town New Zealand.
That's a great point. Yeah.
Before we move on, I just wanted to very quickly touch on Becky Lynch's sit-down interview that aired before Survivor Series with Michael Kool, just very briefly. I'm not sure if you managed to catch this. It was on the pre-show. She was very Donald Trump-like. I didn't think I was going to say DJT's name on this podcast. Very Donald Trump-like. She called Michael Kool misleading Michael. She was talking about investigations, corruptions into all of her losses, and that 100% of her losses have all been rigged. This was brilliant. And at the end of Survivor Series, were Joe Tessitore. Yeah, it was Joe Tessitore, I believe, who had spoken with Becky Lynch, and she said there's another investigation that needs to be had because there is this conspiracy. She was waving her team over. She wasn't tapping out. So it feels very much that she's doing a bit of a low-key borrowing of a certain political figure. Right. And it blew my mind that no one has done this before. And it seems like it's something that's been slowly building up in her character, which, as we've discussed, has been fantastic in 2025. I really hope they lean into this. There really is something here, something unique, and I think something very entertaining. If you haven't seen it, I highly recommend checking out this interview. It was very, very good. Can you see Becky Lynch as a bit of a female low-key Donald J. Trump?
100%. That'd be awesome. She can certainly carry that. She's probably the most entertaining she's been in her career, right? Like, she's a lot of fun. We're clearly heading towards something big between her and AJ Lee at WrestleMania. Whether or not there's a title on the line for that, only time will tell. I'm really interested to see how it all plays out in terms of how she gets her win back. But yeah, like I haven't seen it, so I'm going to go away and watch it. I actually thought when we were prepping for the show and you said you wanted to talk about Becky on a podcast, I thought you were talking about that bomb that she dropped the other day when her and Seth were on that podcast where she talked about some pest behind the scenes and all the people that are wondering who that is, which is kind of funny. So why she dropped that bomb and grenade, I have no idea. Kind of think that was probably a poor decision on her behalf, but I get the feeling that Becky and Seth just don't really care anymore, Dion. They'll just do whatever they want. Yeah,
they're very much their own people. And do you know what? They've earned that right. They've absolutely earned that right. So it's going to be interesting to see if we hear anything.
She's
more
also
about
very pro Joe Biden, well, was anyway. So I know that she's all about, which makes it even funnier. She's a stated Democrat. So I think it'd be quite hilarious if she plays a hardcore Republican.
Yeah. Brad.
Dion.
Who am I?
Oh, your turn. Okay. All right. Okay, let's go.
I competed at the first ever Survivor Series in 1987 in what was my first WWF pay-per-view appearance. I wrestled...
Outlaw Ron Bass.
No, was it though? Yeah. Okay. No, it's not him, but I think you're right in that assessment.
Yeah, it's guess.
I wrestled some of the biggest stars of the 80s and 90s and even went toe-to-toe with Hulk Hogan. I didn't hold any championships in the WWF, but I did capture the ECW World Heavyweight Championship later in my career.
One-man gang?
Ooh, no.
Natural Butch Reed?
No, but interestingly, I was going to go with the Natural Butch Reed for this one, but I did not. I was soon a fixture of the WCW Hardcore division, becoming part of a trio of friends from the same
Bam
past.
Bigelow.
Bam Bam Bigelow. There you go. Bam Bam Bigelow. Man.
Brilliant.
I got those. I got visions of that Survivor Series '87 pay-per-view.
What a card!
That is such a great show.
The Jumping Bomb Angels, way before their time. Yeah. They were so badass. When even really Jesse Ventura was marking out over women's wrestling, and he is the ultimate sexist. So man, do you know what? I've talked about a few guilty pleasures that I have in life when it comes to pro wrestling. If I'm struggling, like if I'm feeling a little bit insomniac and I want to watch some wrestling to help me get to sleep with the sounds of Gorilla Monsoon and Jesse Ventura in the background, Survivor Series 87 is my go-to because, man, the Hall of Famers on that card are sick. Like, what a great card. And yeah, Bam Bam, what are your thoughts, man? Like, I don't know what was going on behind the scenes with him, but they brought him in as a main event dude right off the bat, right? Where he's rubbing shoulders with Hulk Hogan. He had the pick your manager thing. It was Oliver Humperdinck, and he was in the tournament. And then we didn't see him again in WWE for like 7 years. Like back, what was it, like 88? I think it was March 88 was WrestleMania, and then he was just gone.
Yeah, I can't.
It just sounds like he just left.
I don't
which
know
is
what
crazy.
he did. I don't know what he did in that period. You're right. I can't recall him beyond sort of mid-88.
He went to the NWA and he fought Barry Windham at Starrcade in '88, I think it was.
Right.
And he was floating between Japan and NWA for quite a long time, and then I think made a return to WWE in the mid '90s as a heel, and then had a brief babyface run. His biggest moment was probably Lawrence Taylor, and then I think his WCW run, he feuded with Goldberg for a little bit, and then kind of just got lost in the shuffle with the thousands of people they had on their roster at the time. And after that Goldberg feud, he pretty much just became a jobber.
Yeah, pretty much. They did have the was it the Jersey Triad? Were they called the Jersey Triad?
Oh, DDP and Canyon. I think.
Yeah, that's right. That was a great little faction that they had there for a while. But it always felt like greater success was just right there for Bam Bam Bigelow, because man, he was a hell of an athlete. What an incredible look. And you mentioned the one man gang. That was one of your guesses. Those two guys, man, you talk about big men that could move and had a real I guess an aura about them. Yeah, Bam Bam and the one man gang.
Bam Bam had the catapult from outside the ring as his finisher. Like, there's a 300-pound dude. Like, I'd be really interested to find out like what was going on. I haven't really heard him. I might see if Bruce Pritchard's talked about him at all on one of his podcasts, because it kind of felt like they were building him to something really, really big. Because the original plan when he came in was he was going to be Hulk Hogan's buddy and then be a big rival for Hogan at the back end of '88, but then Hogan went away and made No Holds Barred, so like I think they may have changed course on that. And I think he's a story of what could have been if he'd been able to stick with it. He could have had a few with the Big Boss Man. That would have been awesome.
Yeah, hell of a cartwheel.
Great cartwheel.
It's time now to give away a Tu Meke Trophy. Liv Morgan is back.
Yes,
she is
my hall
back,
pass.
and she's your hall pass. Does your wife know?
She does.
Does she?
She accepts that. Drew McIntyre's her hall pass, mate. Well, so like we're on the same wavelength with
that's
this.
Fair.
So.
That's fair. Yeah. I really loved how this all played out. I was sold down the river. Were you? Did you think for a moment that Liv was going to be siding with Cena, or that she was turning on the Dom there, or did you see it coming a mile off?
When she came in the ring, I said to my son, she's going to scon Dominic. And she did, and it was a terrible punch. In the end, it was a work shoot or a shoot work. Was it a shoot work?
I think it was a work shoot, or was it a shoot work, or was it a work work?
Well, it was a work work. And then jumps up onto AJ Lee style, jumps up onto John Cena, and
the crazed look.
Actually, man, AJ Lee and Liv Morgan would absolutely just like. That would be sick.
Well,
I was just thinking about the two craziest women in WWE. But yeah, and then it was kind of a callback to John Cena kicking Cody Rhodes in the nuts, which I thought was awesome.
Yeah.
Loved it. If I could just put a tease to you, Dion, for next week's show.
Sure.
I would like you and me to discuss on next week's show. And look, I'd really like you guys to comment on YouTube or reach out to us on social media. I want to talk about on next week's show, has John Cena's final year been booked well, booked poorly, or somewhere in the middle?
Yeah. Feels like the time to start having that discussion, doesn't it? Because we are 2 weeks away. 2 weeks away from John Cena's final match. And that does take us to what's coming up.
Yeah, and like I said, 2 weeks today, as we record this on Saturday, it's the 14th in New Zealand on a Sunday afternoon. John Cena's last match, which will be on YouTube, I believe, is where you can find on the WWE channel on YouTube, which is where you can find all of their content. It's gonna be awesome. We're gonna start finding out some matches and some stuff in NXT this week about some potential matchups there. I think there's even an indication that potentially a couple of TNA talents might be showing up for this. So, look, let's see how it all sort of shapes out and shapes in. But yeah, can't wait. John Cena's last match, and I may shed a tear or two.
Just one, just two. Yeah, It is going to be an emotional night, not just for us, but for Cena himself. And I did think for a moment there as he came out, I wonder what's going through his head already. Is he just relieved that he's been able to get through this year injury-free? Because that would have been a real concern for him, I'm sure. But I imagine there's a good touch of sadness, a good touch of relief, and probably a bit of joy that he's been able to achieve most of what he wanted to achieve. But yeah, let's dive into it next week.
And you know what? Sure. He is the one guy on the planet who I believe when he says this is my last match. We will never see him in the ring again in a match.
We may have seen our final double AA.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, folks, if you want to find out a little bit more about us and the show, please head along to our website, www.thatsweetpop.com. Episodes drop right here on YouTube Mondays at 8 p.m. And we can be listened to with your glorious little ear holes on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Or catch us on social media on TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook. All right, Survivor Series War Games, another one is in the bank. Well, I guess we're not going to see that big double cage again for another year, and there's a lot of wrestling talk to happen until then. So thank you so much, folks, for joining us. If you're still here with us, we appreciate you so much. And man, I look forward to this conversation next week, Brad, about John Cena and this final year. And I imagine you're going to bring it. You always do.
I am.
All right, folks, thanks again for sticking with us. We'll see you again next week. And until then, have a good one.